Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, there was a real like Bride of Frankenstein vibe I got when I first made the Synctank sound. You know, like in that girl's voice to be like, you can just like, "Whoa!" like make her sing.
Back when women were women.
Yeah, Frankenstein was a cool movie. How you guys doing? Good to see you, Will. What's up, bro?
Feeling good. Glad to see you guys.
I'm ready to sync it up.
Yeah, bro. So, well, where do I start then? Because like I had some thoughts, but then you had some thoughts, and then I think Will had like already was like syncing before this started.
Will was dropping a bunch of names that I feel like I should be familiar with, but I'm definitely not.
Dude, yeah, there's a song now about Will's.
Okay, so do you know about Amazing Stories, or like do you know? Let me tell you the tragic tale of Amazing Stories.
Maybe it doesn't really sound familiar unless it was
you
a show.
Amazing Stories, yeah,
it was a show in the 80s, but before that, it was like a pulp magazine. Like it was originally one of the originators of comic books. So to speak.
Okay, well, I definitely did see this.
Based
the first, I don't know which issue it is. You can look up Kenneth Arnold, but the first, like the huge viral sighting that was called a flying saucer happened in 1947 in the pages of Amazing Stories. Now, before that, what was the big talk of town was a thing called the Shaver Mysteries. And Shaver had said that there was like a subterranean like race of robots that were trying to control like human minds, and it was very sexually oriented, creepy
as
shit.
It should be.
Have you heard of Shaver?
No, I have. This is not. I've heard of the genre here and the title, but I'm not familiar with any of the individual authors or the illustrators.
What's his name? Schaefer? How do you spell this? What is it going on here? Schaefer?
Richard Shaver. It's not Peter Shaver. Peter Shaver. Dick Shaver.
Richard Shaver.
Richard Sharp Shaver. The show. Yeah, there it is, right there. Amazing Story.
Dick Shaver. Richard Sharp Shaver. Dick Sharp
right,
Shaver.
And see, it says Ray Palmer. Now, Ray Palmer is actually a character in DC by the name of like Dr. Adam or whatever.
Bro, I mean, if your name is Dick Sharp Shaver,
Amazing Stories,
you can do anything. I feel like you're born. You know, like you've got your parents really set you up for life. That's quite a gift.
In Box Saga, right? Whoever has the pointy sword is the one that gets to go into battle, and everyone else is there as support.
I remember Lemuria by Richard Shaver.
That is the beginning of the Shaver mystery.
I remember sensational quote racial memory unquote story. Really? Oh, okay, because they're like Blavatsky like root races to Lemurian.
Basically, the guy, as far as I know,
God.
I mean, it's very sexual. It talks about like sexual torture. It talks about all stuff, but it was the very first thing that went very viral. Then a bunch of
public domain?
Bro,
I mean,
probably.
how old is
we were talking about the 1940s, somewhere probably late 40s.
We might be waiting
what
for it.
What happened in 1947? There was a military pilot by the name of Kenneth Arnold who wrote into Amazing Stories. Okay,
all the first issues are going to be public domain. Anything in 1926, 27. The first few years will be for sure.
Well, it looks like 1938 was when they hired Raymond Palmer as editor. So it's probably into the 40s that we're talking about. Yeah, Shaver Mystery, late 1940s.
Yeah, so all the later stuff is still.
So we got 20 years of waiting still.
Yeah. Stories by H.G. Wells and Jules Verne and Edgar Allan Poe.
Edgar Allan fucking Poe, bro.
Wait, like for this, or just they took his stories and illustrated them, like.
And these guys were influenced by Tarzan. Like every name on, well, maybe not Edgar Allan Poe or Jules Verne, but I believe a number of people that wrote into these early stories, they all cited the guy that wrote Tarzan, Edward. I always get his name freaking wrong. It's like Edward G. Burroughs or something.
Like Rice Burroughs.
Yeah, Edgar Rice Burroughs. Correct. And I mean, if you want to talk about theosophy and comic books, that was kind of like the OG of some of it.
Yeah, he did John Carter. I mean, that's the problem with the John Carter movie was like by the time the movie came out, everything had been done from the John Carter series in every possible movie and TV series for the last 100 years. So even though everything kind of originates from John Carter, nobody thought of it as that. They were like, "Oh, this is all like that other movie that ripped off John Carter," you know?
Yeah.
Very sinky movie though. It is like.
I think that's also the point of the movie. Didn't Favreau do it? I forget, or if he.
Favreau had something to do with the development because a lot of cool people have been obsessed with it, including. Can you hear me?
Everybody.
Including Frank Miller. Frank Miller. He licensed a comic for Marvel, and Frank Miller actually drew some John Carter. I mean, it's like Burroughs had a huge effect, but so did this stuff. This stuff was basically spawned out of that, and then it was said to have been real, and then that was the controversy. Is that it was? I mean, it was seriously their sales were spiked overnight off of the UFO story. And so Kenneth Arnold, the military guy, was sent to investigate other UFO sightings that were happening at the same time, including one called the Maury Island incident. Now, have you ever heard of Maury Island?
No. I'm actually pretty ignorant of most of the UFO stuff.
Well, this is important. Again, this is like the beginning of the culture when our ideas of what all of that stuff is like spawned out of this stuff. So
this is Maury Island off the coast of Washington. Is this what you're talking about?
Yes. And just type in the incident, and if you type in the incident, you should get it. But the reason the incident is kind of wild is because there was metal found. There it goes. They call it a hoax now for sure. Now, this is the jumping off place where this has to do with an individual named Fred Chrisman, who was a writer who had actually written up underneath a different name during the whole Shaver mystery things and was confirming it, saying that he had personally been up underneath, like inside of secret bases and had dealt with aliens.
And what year is this right talking?
What's that?
What year is this that we're talking that he's making these claims?
1947. 1947 is the first sighting of a flying saucer. As far as culture is concerned, Chrisman wrote way weird stories that were outlandish, but, kind of what modern, like secret bases and contact with aliens and flying saucers. He was writing the stuff that was influencing that. Now, here's where it gets weird, bro. Like, Chrisman was like a bishop and like the Universal Life Church or whatever, right? And he also had multiple degrees. Now, if you go and you look at all of those degrees, they're basically just like awarded diploma mill degrees. But because of those degrees, he can call himself a doctor. And because of his association with the Life Church, he can call himself like a reverend or a pastor. And he would hop on the radio up in like Washington and Tacoma area and talk about like right-wing stuff on the radio under the name of Dr. Gold. And he had different aliases like Frank Chrisman, Frank E. Chrisman. He had 3 names. Like, okay. According to legend, he was the first person that Clay Shaw called when arrested for the assassination of John F. Kennedy. That's how he gets involved with the thing. Now, there's a lot of disinfo. That's what you got to understand.
Interesting.
Like, so Chrisman's whole thing is disinfo, but he's the beginning of UFOs. You get where I'm going?
And he's also, so the beginning of UFOs is also one of the 3 tramps arrested around the JFK assassination to drive, to distract.
I want to make sure I'm following. So he makes a name for himself through UFO speculation turned political commentary in a way. And then the JFK assassination happens. And because he'd established himself as someone with an opinion, he gets to be like getting phone calls from people.
Clay Shaw is the individual who he's basically, if you look at the movie JFK, we'll go with that archetype. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so Kevin Costner is Jim Garrison. Okay. Tommy Lee Jones is an individual named Clay Shaw. Clay Shaw was the only individual who was arrested. When he got out, he called Chrisman. So because Garrison got interested
had made a name for himself through UFO speculation.
But it wasn't because he had made a name for himself. As far as anybody knew, Fred Chrisman was a school teacher up in like it's just hoaxes, bro. Like it's hard. You can read each incident. They don't have anything to do with each other. Do you get what I'm saying?
He had a name for himself under a pseudonym named Gold.
Yes, Dr. Gold was like his persona as far as going on the radio or public.
And that persona existed prior to the JFK assassination.
Oh. Okay.
That was a question, actually.
It was actually considered to be, what they said in the papers is that it was like a station name that had been passed down from another person. But in all truth, this is what's weird, and this is what Garrison didn't understand. There's a whole bunch of individuals that are involved with the investigation with JFK. It was investigated in 68, and then it was investigated again in 76 by the House Select Committee on Assassinations. 76, 78, somewhere. Something like that. Anyways, so what happens is like it's just a mess. Like the investigations are a mess because they don't understand certain things. They have certain ideas that all of these people are reverends and doctors, and they can't figure out why that is. But everybody that's involved with Oswald or around Oswald, that includes Joe Pesci in the movie, that includes Kevin Bacon in the movie, that includes Clay Shaw in the movie, that includes a guy named Reverend Raymond Broshears, that includes Carrie Wendell Thornley, and that includes a guy by the name of Thomas E. Beckham. All of them have 3 names. All of them are like intertwined, and both were investigated. The House Select Committee basically said that there was possible that it was a conspiracy in New Orleans, but that it was not a cover-up by the government. That's what the House Select Committee decided, that New Orleans, if you place Oswald in New Orleans, he is surrounded by a guy by the name of Guy Bannister, who was in the movie. I can't remember the actor, but he's the main guy. Look up Guy Bannister. Guy Bannister was one of the guys who initially investigated UFOs for the government. He is considered by some to be the guy who inspired the X-Files. All of these guys worked for him. Oswald worked for him and had a post office box with him. Carrie Wendell Thornley had a post box. Like this guy named Jack Martin, Raymond Broshears, all of them like bishops and ministers and reverends and doctors and have PhD in criminologies, and had started, like, the guy named Thomas E. Beckham starts a business with Chrisman about criminology in Washington. and they all get like these degrees in criminology from this one like entity that is up underneath the name of this guy named Thomas Beckham and Fred Chrisman up in Washington. Okay. Oh man, this is great. This shit is great.
I remember I went to the Twin Falls in Washington, and like one of the falls has been shut down, and there's
so here's the thing. Like, is it disinformation?
There.
Like, let's stop right here and like recoup, because
what movie would you were mentioning a movie with Joe Pesci? I didn't catch that.
Oh,
part.
JFK.
Oh, the JFK.
We'll use JFK.
He played the guy with the
like,
eyebrows. I'm trying to remember his name. David
Danny
Perrier or Ferrier.
Yeah, Joe Pesci is really like. I think Joe Pesci is more interesting than Kevin Bacon, if you think about it.
Well, dude, that David Ferry guy that he plays is such an interesting character, not just because of the eyebrows, which is incredibly fascinating, but I believe he was involved in the origin of Civil Air Patrol, which also coincidentally, a young Lee Harvey Oswald, prior to him even going into the military, joined Civil Air Patrol, which feels like a niche of a niche of a niche. Like, what are the chances that he goes? It reminds me a little bit of like how Walt Disney just happened to be the protege and Desmoulins of the guy that actually founded Desmoulins. Like we've got Lee Harvey Oswald. I don't know if there's a direct connection between him and Ferry exactly when he was in New Orleans.
But they're all like homosexuals too. And if you watch the movie, there's like parts where there's like at a sexual like gay party, and Lee Harvey Oswald is there, but there's no real reason for Lee Harvey Oswald to be there. Does that make sense? Because he's like a married man.
Where they find what's his name in like the BDSM gear.
I guess New Orleans was like a homosexual haven back in the 60s. But there was actually like and this is my idea, is like it would make a great comic book, because if you read all of how they talk about it, it is like cloak and dagger, people backstabbing each other. There's like a main restaurant where all of them have these parties, but there's all locals, and it's like this. It's crazy.
This is John F. Kennedy's best friend. His name was Lem. He was a homosexual. President, he wanted nothing more than his best friend, who was an open homosexual, to live with him in the White House. How dare you go after John F. Kennedy? He was a veteran war hero. It's not like he was wearing matching gay guy short shorts, shirtless, arm in arm with the guy. Oh, yeah? What about this?
David Berry equals
arm in arm.
David
in matching short shorts. John F. Kennedy, of course, being shirtless, and his studly homosexual best friend that he stays close with his entire life, smiling like he just sucked a dick. How dare you, Big Bear? How fucking double dog dare you? I'm a baby boomer, okay? That clearly is just two young men. One just so happens to be a homosexual. There's nothing gay going on there. It's not like they're petting a dog together or anything. What if they're petting a little puppy together in white linen pants? How dare you, Big Bear? I'm a baby boomer. But that's a man that put a man on the fucking moon. What did you do? He's not homosexual, petting a puppy. Listen, I was with you as a fan. I was with you as a fan when you were going after the goddamn liberals. And then even when you came at your own Crowder. But now that you're attacking an American patriot as a homosexual, how fucking dare you? I mean, it's not as if he was in a barbershop quartet together.
Get away with this. What is happening?
You've gone too far this time. That's the man that put a man on the goddamn moon and made black people and white people equal forever. The same exact cock length and everything. And now you're trying to say he's a homosexual. How dare? It's not like he slow danced with the homosexual and made out with him. Well, here's a picture of John F. Kennedy Jr. and his homosexual best friend slow dancing and kissing. How double dog dare you? John F. Kennedy is
He's a war hero, right? He's a war hero.
I think that's why like they thought Garrison was crazy, because he basically blamed it on like the Jew communist. Like, it's wild.
Well, you were saying that there should be a comic book about this, so I'll show a little bit of a preview, but I haven't shown this before.
Yeah, just like that, like dark noir 19.
So this is about the JFK. I'm like 140 pages in, but I've got like another 100 to go. but this is about the whole JFK story from my own perspective inside of a bubble without like any outside kind of like penetration aside from books and movies and research that I've been doing. This one right here is basically George de Mohrenschildt, I think I'm saying that right, who ends up being like the protege to the mentor to Lee Harvey when he moves to Dallas, and he also is like friends with Jackie Onassis
and Ruby.
you know, Bouvier. Like early on, like he used to say that she used to sit on my lap as a kid. So like this guy's a weird connection, but so like this is a whole scene about where they get pulled over on their way to somewhere in Texas. I can't remember exactly. It was on the southern tip of Texas. Here's where I speculate that Sidney Gottlieb links up with Jack Parsons just because the dates would line up if he had found himself over on the West Coast. This is Lee Harvey Oswald.
Like if you made the
Jack
script
Ruby.
directly, like almost intertwined with what they say in the papers. Do you get what I'm saying? Like you can do, so it's not really like speculation or anything like that.
Well,
you're basically
if
just
you
making
see
vivid.
very,
That have copyright issues? I don't.
So the very beginning, so the copyright issues with a newspaper, yeah. But what I did is that I took actual quotes from the Warren Commission report, which is public domain since it's like government funded essentially.
So
and
all the public domain should anything by the government as far as like court papers and everything should be you can use that for scripts.
My understanding, and I'm reproducing it in full and giving it credit, but like these are direct quotes from all the Warren Commission, which sets up each little scene, and then I basically put the illustration of like my version of those characters as, okay, here's the people that this commission report was talking about, or here's some excerpts from their particular testimony, and then each scene starts with that, and then it goes into the, you know, what's going on. So like this one has citations from the Jack Parsons writing at his Agape Lodge, and then it also has some of the references from Sidney Gottlieb's thesis paper for when he was working towards his doctorate. But yeah, this is something. I've been working on this for a long time.
Zygos is like looks legit. Is it an art? Are you using AI art, or is this done by?
No, none of this is AR. It's a combination of two different artists. One of them is Brian Benjamin, who I met right as he was graduating the Kubert School, and then I got a couple other artists that helped fill in all the extra pages that we're still working on. But all the ones you're seeing right now are from Brian Benjamin.
Some of the audience thinks that's great that you're giving meat bags jobs, and I think that's good. But you know, help, you know, every AI
can do their jobs better if they use AI as a tool and not a crutch.
Unless they're trying to draw hands, or like, you know what was the one I saw recently? My favorite is the new there's a video I saw recently that was like trying, you know how they're doing what's it called, like the Luma system, it lets you do video generations. Well, trying to generate gymnastic videos is like trying to generate hands. I don't know, this might get us in trouble just because of how weird it is. I'm just kidding, it should be fine. This is biblical. This is
I don't want to. Oh, is she okay?
This is biblically accurate gymnastics.
Okay.
Yeah,
it looks like returning back to source. Actually,
the whirlwind spoke to Job.
This is the there it is. There's the seraphim. Oh, there's a seraphim right there.
But see, the truth is that all this means is that no one has made a gymnastics specific training Laura or Dora or whatever the new thing's going to end up being.
Right. This is the Turing test for now. I mean, this is great. I love watching it. This is.
Whoa.
So good. There's a little bit more in there. I think I'll just give it the rest. Like, wait, one more.
I mean, I think we're definitely there. This is essentially like not commercial grade in a way. This is like the ones that we get to play around with that are easily accessible through cloud and that they can keep running and not running out of memory. But on the bleeding edge, I'm fully convinced that they could do an entire Hollywood movie at this point. Like, we got enough monkeys with typewriters in order to pull that off.
But like, there's better things out there. Like, look at this.
Oh, no,
yeah,
dude.
This is incredible. This
Whoa,
is, you know,
ooh,
I mean, it's awesome. This is, I think,
Oh,
like
ooh,
music videos and stuff like that. They're censored. Don't worry.
So
You don't worry.
Yeah, bro. I mean,
Oh,
I
you
feel
know,
like this is like
Mountain,
this is like an '88 music video cross with, yeah. I don't know. There's a lot to it, though.
Right?
Look at
I
this.
think
This
it's
is a
going to
Blind
make
Melon
the bar is
video.
going to keep rising though.
Oh, the
You know what I
the way
mean?
like it arranges fields and stuff, and then it turns into like, oh, just I love it.
I don't like it. I don't like it.
I think it's a little rudimentary. I like where it's going. I don't think that one in particular is gonna
See,
knock.
I
anyone's
think
socks
I
off.
think people are confused because, like, you know, and I get this way too, where I'm like, oh man, it should sound real, it should sound real, it should get. And I remember thinking that way when I was young, like it should be HD, it should be the clearest picture. And now I look back at like recordings I have that are in low resolution, they have like a quality to them, and I think about all the like crazy things, like glitchy, cool things that happen from the chaos of glitch, and we're not looking for that as much anymore because we're like trying to get things that are super clean. And I used to love to listen to just static, like Nine Inch Nails would listen to like the, you know, the speaker test noises, right? Like what happened to like the
You kids
pleasure we
these
got?
days don't wanna
Yeah,
listen to static and noise.
I think you're right. I think that might be the thing.
Why don't my grandkids like noisecore? What's
Yeah, what
wrong
happened?
with this
What's
world?
wrong with these kids? They don't listen to noise.
Men flying around on the moon.
I think you caught me. Yeah, that might be true. But
Oh,
no,
can I
think we
pivot?
should.
Can I pivot?
Okay.
Can I bring up another UFO story and then I'll
He does
show
love
you how
UFOs.
both of them connect. I was
All right,
patiently
hold on. I
waiting.
wanted to.
Oh yeah.
You know I see them for plastic, them fish in the sea, and some squid like to live around some human debris. There's a full breed of octopus that live in that city under the sea. Under the sea. It all revolves around Thomas Beckham. They all have three names, so they can rearrange. So like Williams, Burrow, and don't forget Mel.
Don't forget Mel. Don't forget him.
The heliocopters are coming.
The heliocopters are coming.
Who is Mel?
Don't
Mel
forget
Gibson.
Mel.
Gibson. Okay, I got it.
Unfolds in the fabric of time, the mystic connections, the reason, the rhyme in the web of existence. All things intertwine. The deeper you look, the more you will find. You know they say there's more plastic than fish in the sea, and some squid like to live around some human debris.
I feel like Disney's missing out. That's all I'm saying. Like this is way better than
Very
what they're doing.
Pixar marketable.
We're
I know.
missing out is what's happening. I think it would be more for humankind than it would be for Disney.
Well, you know, they've got the tower, you know what I mean? Like, so that's the whole thing with LA, right? It's a hellmouth that used to suck in life, and then they inverted it, which is why all sorts of like "Rah!" comes out of there, and you have to wear dead heart like hides of like beasts under your feet just to get across Hollywood Boulevard. But they have a tower, you know, that can broadcast anywhere in the world, and they will hear you. If you're in Hollywood and you speak, they will hear you. Maybe even if you just speak in your heart, they will feel you. You know, that's what's crazy about Hollywood.
You know, if we had Walt, if Walt was around, or they reanimated Walt, or they defrosted him, he would cast Mel Gibson, no problem.
Yeah.
All right, let's play a game in the chat room real quick. Mel Gibson, hero or villain?
Yes.
I mean, yeah, I would. Can't you just say yes to
you got to
both?
pick one or the other. Is
Why?
Mel Gibson a hero or is he a villain?
I hate that. Like,
I mean, anti-hero.
all right, start with any biblical character. He's a Catholic, right? Like, so Mel Gibson's like a Catholic. So every biblical character is a hero and a villain, right? Every single one except for Jesus. Even then, he's probably a villain to some. But like, you think about David or Daniel or all these characters, right? Like killing their friends' wives and this and that. Like,
I mean, I
there's
feel
a
like Jesus walked in your house and he started flipping tables over. Like he made himself an enemy that day.
and he
So,
starts
yeah,
screaming, "This is my house!" You know what I mean? Yeah.
and you're like, all right, he's a villain now.
Yeah, I think that's what happened actually, historically. So no, I mean, yeah. What was the point of that? You want him to be a hero or a villain? He has to be one. You muted yourself.
You were talking about somebody else, and I was going to ask hero or villain on them too. I don't
Which
know.
one? Which
What-
person?
Off on the chat group, like it's funny.
Which person? Which person? You guys can do it. You
Remember,
can say,
you were talking about Mel Gibson. I rewound.
you guys say more or less. I think you could be like more or less hero, more or less villain if you want. I'm not trying to take that away.
Well, okay, like Fred Chrisman, hero or villain?
Oh, probably villain.
Well,
Right.
wasn't he a Minuteman?
Well, here, okay. So have you ever
Nah.
heard of the tragedy of Valiant Thor?
Indeed.
Have you
Yeah.
heard this? Do you know this?
Oh yeah, of course.
Valiant
you know this
Thor.
too. You know this too, Thomas, or no? Valiant Thor, the
I'm
handsome,
gonna have to
alien man.
watch you guys pull this up.
You might know him. You might be familiar. Is a handsome alien man, Mel Gibson's grandfather,
Handsome
probably.
alien man who lives in the White House for 3 years.
Yeah, there's movies about it, and also he like left books and talked about how there's cities in the Garthi and Gartha, whatever, Hyperborean underneath Mount Shasta. You know,
Stranger at the Pentagon. Boom.
So, but my understanding is these all started as sci-fi and stories, and then became conspiracies. Like none of these started as a conspiracy that then inspired a sci-fi, right?
I feel like Valiant
well,
Thor
they were
is
toted. Everything that we've talked about tonight was mostly toted as true stories.
Valiant Thor is before the conspiracies, really, and also during the period that emerged. Like when Valiant Thor emerges, immediately you have like the MOSFET semiconductor, you have new MC PCI materials, like silicon materials that were not invented yet. All of a sudden, crazy. So one way or another, like 47 crazy things emerge all at the same time, which make it possible for a brand new revolution of composite plastics and of high high functioning capacitor glass, and even this is like they moved from tube computers to again the MOSFET semiconductor. So that's like the tie-in. Also when that happens, there's also like the MJ12 document, right? The magic document. And from that you have like a dozen or so important scientists who signed the paperwork saying that nothing really happened this year, but then each one of them goes off and invents something, right? Vannevar Bush creates MEMX, which is the electromagnetic digital memory system, which he postulates will be used for a thing called Xanadu, which is like a meta space internet that would be connected where information in libraries and media could be played instantaneously. Like all of this stuff emerges in 47. These ideas.
Well, I've heard similar things about Roswell that like following.
This is
Roswell,
47 was Roswell.
And...
47 is Roswell. Also, it all happens like
it all happens at the same time. Bro. Yeah, 47 is a huge year, and it's interesting because it's post-nuclear. So we also we could tie it into this idea that like the Star Trekkian like, oh, what are they doing down there kind of vibe, that things are or something is happening around
Hitler,
46 to 47.
Hitler had made war with an assembly line, so we had passed over into this very dangerous part of the Industrial Revolution where we could understand the idea of nuts and bolts flying saucers. And that became part of like what we experienced, you know?
Yeah. Brett's bringing up a fun one, chips, fiber optics, and Kevlar. All of those things were found to get, okay, so like the conspiracy, one of my favorites is...
So it's totally inherited that Eisenhower had contact with aliens. That's the myth, right?
Hold on. So chips, fiber optics, and Kevlar, the story goes that they go into like a crash, and I don't know, this is a fun story, but they go into a crash flying saucer and their feet and their clothes start ripping as it gets stuck to the inside of the thing. And they're like, what is this stuff? And it's Velcro, right? Because one of the other inventions that comes out around the time from one of the MJ12 document guys, and he's an electro engineer. Well, his patent is Velcro. And Velcro at the time, when like they first were creating it, when the NASA is using it, it's made out of carbon and diamond. So it's so strong that it can, and Kevlar, so it can hold anything, right? So the idea that like Velcro even is something that you could connect, if Velcro is conductive, then you can use it to actually connect circuits, right? And so there's a lot of things that we don't think about, like the millions of internodal paths that Velcro have. One of them could go out, 30 more of them will function, right? Because it's just finding the path of least resistance for energy to flow. So Velcro itself is actually like far more impressive than we realize, right? And these are all things that come at that time.
Well, we also inherited everything that we got from Paperclip and all the other spoils of war on the tail end of World War II. So that, I mean, I would be easier persuaded that we inherited this from what they were studying versus it came out of a spaceship that crash landed in 47.
But it's plausible. would you at least admit that it's plausible that all of these advances could be some connection or some deal that the government
definitely.
had made?
I would almost just make it more general and say that we found some kind of like hidden tech, whether it came from where the Germans found it and we inherited what they found, or something happened in between the 40s and the 50s where we inherited some kind of new technology, or everyone, if you believe in like ideas just floating around, it was just like the perfect storm. There was like a hurricane Cat 6
Okay,
of great ideas
sure.
going on.
Sure. Would you also agree, though, that like Valiant Thor would be a watered down version of what that actually would look like? Do you get what I'm saying? Like it could be just disinfo. It looks like disinfo, right?
Maybe, I guess. I mean,
well, let's go more let's go more specific.
Look who
Like,
wrote
the idea
it.
that
The
idea that, okay, just hold on, just think about this. After 47, what you have is you have CTC IBM starts to emerge as something that has giant military industrial secrets, but so do the universities. So you have something that's being seeded to the universities to build things up. Berkeley, MIT, the Sage Network kind of emerges from competitive access to this data from a classified source, right? And we could say this is from the Germans, but that's pretty weird because then we're saying the Germans are just like hyper brilliant, like they can do anything. And I wonder about that, just like knowing the demographics of Germans compared, I wonder if that's true compared to the scientists that we have as well, if we couldn't do things ourselves versus the Russians, or what's going on in terms of like having access to all data at all times. So I mean, yeah, just the idea that we emerge as a superpower, then the next company that emerges, like Intel, has to produce the chips, Xerox has to produce printer systems, and so they start producing Park Labs. Apple comes into the picture through Venrock. So you see, even when Apple is there through Pepsi and venture Rockefeller investment, boom, 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 boom. Anybody who has access to this stuff, risk architecture, these systems that emerge, they're held at the very top, and they're in this prototypical secondary market, and then they're given to manufacturers. And so we're seeing competitive manufacturers in Asia, East Asian companies that can produce computers or television sets or screens or whatever. But all of that seems to emerge from this moment, right? Like every piece of technology seems to come from this. And we have, before that, we have vacuum tubes, and then we have MOSFET. And I would even go that we haven't talked enough about things before MOSFET, because I would say like the Vril and this idea that the people that were building the vacuum tube machines in the 1890s, earlier than that, really. I mean, just if you start looking at
the ether and Vril.
Yeah, like the vacuum tube systems were built by occultists, medians as well. People that were in, the entire point of the early radio.
Almost all of it is like.
Alexander Graham Bell and Thomas Watson thought that they were
Parsons.
actually utilizing ghosts that were living on the wires and transmitting the messages for them.
What a crazy thing to think, right? I mean,
I don't know.
Parsons was definitely a cult, and so this is interesting. Like, if you look up Parsons' dad, his name, he was a captain, so he's basically like, and his last name is actually Marvel. So he's basically like, it's like a character out of a comic book. I've thought about like making comic books out of that whole situation too, because the guy, whether you think the occult is real or not.
Oh man, they cut him off because he was going to say something good. What were you trying to say?
They're like, no more.
Do you want to try again, or is it too intense? Do you want to get? I don't know. You don't want to get disappeared.
Whether the guy is legit, whether you believe in the occult or not. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah.
You have to admit. You have to admit that he changed the course of human history with his.
Yeah, Jack Parsons changed the course of human history with science and magic, and maybe that was going to happen
about him. There's a comic book called The Marvel. It came out like 10 years ago, and I think it was like a black and white one. It was done really well, but it was also like super deep into all of his like cult knowledge. I think that looks like it. No, not adorable. That one. That looks even cooler. But yeah, the one is called The Marvel. I think it was all black and white. It looks like a web comic. Yeah, that looks like it might be part of the Marvel. So it goes really deep into his sort of like occult practices.
Yeah. I wonder a lot about that, like this idea that if you're kind of neurodivergent and you're working in engineering and you were brought up in this world, like a lot of these engineers don't come from families as brilliant as they are, even. And so their families are, superstitious, religious people, that somehow you get some sort of an intertwining of that in your neurodivergence. So they're trying to come up with an explanation, maybe for this, for why this thing looks like so metaphysical, or it just
there's
is
something
real.
called if you ever looked into form constants before, they're big in like the psychedelic field, but there's also a version of form constants where people can see like mathematical equations, like beautiful mind style, but they actually see things like spatially. So when you ask Rain Man to like add numbers up and you're like blown away and like, oh, how is this guy so smart? But it's because it's almost like a synesthesia effect where like they can see numbers or they can smell numbers or feel numbers and interact with them in ways that don't require having to like go through like a whole logic process and tap into like learned knowledge. Because if you believe that numbers and equations and formulas are like representative of some kind of like Platonic ideal, there's people that can actually see those things. And I think one of them is like a number line in form constants. And that's where if you're someone's trying to compare ratios or even like distances of time or length of things, that they'll actually see like a little bar charts like in their real vision. This dates back hundreds of years before there was like computer graphics to give the predictive programming aspect of it.
Right. Yeah, I think that's it's interesting the more we think about like the capacity of the human mind and what we have in us ourselves already. But yeah, no, I wonder because again, these are characters who are, like Tesla. Tesla says that he's getting spiritual messages that are giving him designs. I've talked to engineers from Falcon Research that have like literally done the same, right? Jeremiah, the technician, like he like channels, he
Terrence
says
Howard.
like, I wouldn't consider them the same, but 'cause,
No,
like,
he says that he had an angel give him all of his, whether or not he's. I'm just saying that's what he says.
yeah, that's kind of my point. Like, so I don't know. I'm not saying anything about Terrence Howard right now. I'm just saying that I know Jeremiah. I know Jeremiah and I trust Jeremiah and I know what he does, right? And this guy,
Oh.
he's a neurodivergent engineer who invents Tesla coils. He gets free energy out of like UHF television signals.
Oh,
he actually
shit.
like yeah, no, like everything about Jeremiah is legit. And also he's like what he's like crazy. Look at this guy with his top hat, right? Like look at his lab though, particularly, and look what he builds. So like these are the kinds of people I'm talking about that are built. This is not him. This is one of the engineer socket coil builders that he's working with. But they're building like hundreds of coils, and then they're doing all sorts of experiments, and some of those things you totally call crazy, right? But at the same time, he's super successful. All of these things in doing the things he's talking about. Like he figured out how to, like I said, get energy from the electricity that's in the air broadcasting radio waves for television signal. And he also figured out how to harvest enough energy that he can have like a Tesla taser, like a handheld Tesla coil. And he's like making them. That's one of the things they're wrapping for and selling. So I'm just saying, I trust him. And he builds stuff based on closing his eyes and thinking about designs coming from a place. Now, could that just be subconscious? He's an engineer and he's autistic and neurodivergent, and so he's created in his mind a Jungian subconscious pure mathematical genius source that he can tap into. Or is it also just fair to say like he's trying to do it, that's not how he's trying to do it. He's trying to do it the same way. He's like, that's hilarious that these engineers that I respect so much 100 years ago were trying to talk to energy or like something beyond a veil. I'll try it too. And for that to work for him, I think is interesting.
Is that an FCC violation to harvest energy from like radio and television signals? Because I would assume that
I would imagine so.
Yeah, because if you can harvest the energy, then that means you're weakening the signal. And therefore, basically, I would assume that's some sort of FCC violation.
I don't know if it really weakens the signal because the way waves bounce, right? Like there's a certain amount of wave that is absorbed. I mean, imagine that you have like thousands of UHF antennas, right? They're all doing the same thing, essentially. Well, I mean, I just meant a distributed network, like people's aerials on top of their homes, right? Like that is essentially something that does the same thing, and it also reflects back, right? So I think, I don't know, maybe that's different. Is there energy?
Well, I'm just thinking, what if everyone had one? What if literally every single person on the planet had the thing that could harness, this energy? Would it not affect the signal at all? Does everyone still get perfectly clear reception, even if everyone's also harvesting free energy off of those signals? It seems like I don't understand the full mathematics. I understand the aspect of Tesla's version of free energy was basically like shooting energy up into the ionosphere, waiting for it to come back down, shooting it back up again, like one of those trampoline videos where like the kid breaks his leg or whatever. But that was kind of that aspect of what Tesla was doing, like a simplified version. But I would love to know, are you just calling him up right now?
Yeah, I was gonna see the answers. We'll find out. I don't know if he'll answer though, because like he's probably like working on something in his lab,
But yeah, if everyone in a neighborhood or everyone in a city all had that technology running 24/7 and using it to power whatever, would they all get the same reception as before?
I feel like you would, but I don't know. I don't have the actual answer to that.
Because then the next question is just like, what's stopping everyone from just having infinite free energy? And does that mean that he's on the chopping block to get taken out?
Just the elite, right? I think is the point. Like, because there is, like, for instance, there's so much more energy than we can fathom. And you can imagine you just put a pole up or like some sort of a coil that reaches like stratospheric level, then that pole will produce so much energy that the pole will melt, right? So you have to have distribution. So if you had like a graphene system of billions and billions of tethers together in some sort of a giant like 8-meter wide pole, then you'd also have something below it like supercapacitor systems for acres and acres, maybe miles, square miles. Then you could distribute that energy into a system and you could put that energy out elsewhere. And that's not even considering like volcanic energy, hydrothermal energy, like ocean energy. Like we have so much energy that's not being used, right?
Well, I forgot who I was talking about this with the other day, but there's like this weird irony that the amount that we're doing right now for GPU and AI research, right? Like one of the biggest balances on this is that you have to have cooling and you have to have all this extra energy and cooling just to deal with the inefficiency of it running and creating heat. Because ideally, if it generated no heat, then it would be way more efficient. And then on the other side of the world, you've got people that are paying money to keep their house or their businesses warm with heat. So like you've got billions of dollars being poured into someone that's running a thing that's generating heat they don't want. And then on the other side, you've got billions of dollars poured into people that just want the heat part and they don't care about running GPUs or anything. And it's just wild that these massive amounts of like inefficiency could cancel each other out, but we're still sort of Stone Age in the way that we can't figure out how to take our waste and use it in like the right ways.
Yeah, I know that's the idea, like the Kardashian scale, that we need to reach a point where, volcanoes don't destroy cities randomly, but constantly power cities of like a billion people, because a volcano would have enough energy for vertical agriculture, vertical, housing and everything, that you could put a dense amount of people. You could put enough energy to have them live in just off of one volcano.
I was looking this up the other day because we had a really bad lightning storm, and the electricity bill just went up in Florida, and we're the lightning capital of the world. And if we could capture one lightning strike and harness it, that would pay for a typical person's electric bill for about 3 to 4 months in Florida. So if one house could capture 3 lightning strikes, that's all your electricity paid off for the entire year. And I think in a random lightning storm in Florida that lasts a half hour passing through, it generates somewhere around 2,200 lightning strikes. So one storm could pay off the entire energy bill of an entire community. And if there was a way to do that, like, I don't know, it just going to the credit that we just have all this energy floating around and we're spending all this money to generate it, but it could be free.
Yeah, it's definitely designed to keep you trapped.
Gigawatts.
Right. I mean, but Stranger, that's also kind of, I think that's kind of the joke about that, is 1.21 gigawatts is not actually that much energy, right?
And 88 miles per hour is not that fast either.
Yeah. Hey, hold on here. I got him. Hey, so Jeremiah, do you have a quick second to answer a question about UHF Energy Harvest?
I mean, I am driving back right now,
So try to answer me real quick. UHF energy harvesting. If let's say a UHF signal gets harvested by one of your things that can get powered by the free energy in the waves in the air, right? Does that reduce the UHF signal strength in any way? Like, does that
what if 1,000 people are using it at the same time?
What if 1,000 people are using it?
So what happens is when you absorb the signal from a certain area, in order to absorb the signal and actually harvest it, there has to be a counter electromotive force, which means that basically the receiving antenna that's capturing the stray Wi-Fi or whatever ultra high frequency that you're collecting, it produces an exactly opposite signal that cancels out the original one around the antenna, but it doesn't very well cancel it. It's slightly out of phase, so basically it just affects the area right around the antenna, and you would never even be able to notice it. So, like, for example, if you're trying to capture cell phone tower frequencies and you put your cell phone right up next to a UHF harvester, you're not going to notice any significant drop. Like, if you have 5 bars, you may notice it go down to 4 bars, but it's not going to completely stop it. It's just going to slightly scatter it, and it will reduce the signal fidelity. It's just meaning
but
that
at scale,
the bars might still be there, but the signal might be a little bit scattered. But otherwise, no. Ultimately, the answer to the question is no. It won't affect it in any meaningful way.
But at scale, what if like everyone in the world, were using it, would that at scale affect it?
No, not really, because it's still localized. It's because basically, like, you're gonna have 99.99% of your UHF signal still present, and for that tiny little 0.1% or 0.01% that you might be capturing, it's such an insignificantly small number, and it's so local that it doesn't really make any functional difference. So the question is, what would be the goal? Is the goal to kind of like try to get rid of the extra UHF energy around by attempting to turn it into something else so that you're not being exposed to it? Or are you just wondering, does it kill the original signal?
Yeah, he's wondering if it like drains the original signal, like if it was like making it harder for that signal to travel further or be picked up by other things, right, that were meant to use it.
Not really. Basically, a UHF energy harvester is gonna eat about maybe 1/50th of the signal that would just be consumed in trying to go through a wall or something like that.
Yeah, that's kind of thing. Yeah.
So it's really going to be one of those insignificant things. You'll never notice the difference. You can leave that downstairs unless you need it right now, babe.
All right. Well, Jeremiah, thank you very much. Let's do a show pretty soon. Everybody tune in to Jeremiah the Technician's channel on YouTube. We love you, bro. Peace out.
All right, take it easy, man.
So there you have it. That was like phone a friend. I love it.
Well, I mean, I feel like the next logical thing is we figure out how much it costs to make a DIY version of this, and then just do like a campaign and see how many people want to build their own DIY thing that'll just charge your cell phone for free.
We'll have to do a real science with Bernie, Crypto Alchemist, and Jeremiah, because they've been doing that. Jeremiah, actually, Technician, has made several projects where you can buy the kits. You get he got 100 of the bulk pieces together so that he could get it cheap enough that he could make them for himself, and then would sell the kits. Like, you could build them yourself. And I think also he could assemble them if you want that. But just, maybe he should charge for that. We should probably make him charge for that, because
I mean, if we can actually have a thing that generates real free energy, even if it's only enough to power a 5-volt USB device, like a standard 5-volter, I think that would be...
Oh, you could do way more than 5 volts. We have people, like, we just did a show, the last Bernie stream, we talked with people that have, like, laundry machines that are running off of these coils, right? So they have, like, free energy that's enough to sustain...
That's great. That's 240 volt, right? That's nuts.
They're running an entire room, not just the laundry machine, but also the lights and everything in that room. And maybe fridges, because once you have a field going, and the idea is, like, how much can they get going on a field? So, and this is all...
I'm all about this. I wonder, does it work in a power, like a straight up power outage? A hurricane comes through and knocks out Central Florida, period. Like, no one's got electricity.
Well, if the hurricane doesn't tear... Yeah, it would be fine unless the hurricane destroys your system, right? Because if you disconnect everything, like, that field would be broken. And so you would lose your ionic field. You would no longer have, a sustained method for keeping it flowing. So that's a couple of the reasons. But the other thing, I think Brett's talking about amps at volts, and there's a whole other thing about, direct current, what we can run at direct current. More and more things run direct current now, so you don't have to have as much inversion anymore. Things are inverted in devices. like your laptops, your phones, everything like that. So you can charge everything with DC. So it's interesting how much that changed everything, because we were trying to get more and more energy that we could convert and invert. And now it's like we have devices that don't lose as much energy because they're just directly going into batteries, and then they're going into half volt at a time, right? So, sorry, I know Will's like, the whole point was we were going to talk about the alien tech. Go ahead.
Don't put that on me, bro.
No. But Strangers at the Pentagon is an interesting book, and I'm glad you brought it up. Right? This was my childhood. Okay. This is like I remember
where they took out all the financial documents the first time.
Dude, when I was in second grade, like I was convinced of all of this stuff. Like I was just not even convinced. It's more like I took it for granted, because this is like around this time, everything in TV was like sorry, I missed David. Everything was apocalyptic, MK Ultra, Freedom of Information Act, disclosures. If you weren't at work and you were a kid, that was the stuff you saw on TV, right? On Prime Star. So this stuff was just taken for granted. Go ahead.
Well, 80s, 90s conspiracy theory was ubiquitous in almost all, and this comes up a lot of the time when all the different movies and TV shows that we do to review, like 80s and 90s, you don't actually have to prep the viewer with, and here's conspiracy theories, and here's the ones that are real, because if you see a little security camera or just a guy walk by with a little thing in his ear, like whispering into his watch in the 80s and 90s, you already know, like, oh, there's spies, oh, there's men in black in this reality, and that it could be so subtle, and now you almost have to like beat it over the head.
Do you guys know that book is written by, though?
What, Will?
Who that book is written by?
By Frankie Stranges.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a comic book name, Dr. Frankie Stranges. Now the problem with this book is they kind of shoot up his credibility. So if you listen to any podcast, you're going to hear about Frankie Stranges' real weird PhDs, because he's Dr. Stranges, and the fact that he is a reverend. He's a Reverend Frank. What the? Oh.
Wow, and he doesn't have a page. They don't want him to have a page. Look at that.
Nope, they don't. He doesn't have a page. He's really hard to find. I mean, you can look him. The most success I had finding information about him was looking him up on AI chatbots, like especially like Perplexity, which will source about him. You can find him on like IMDb, but most podcasts that use him as an example for UFOs talk about his diplomas, which are all like meal diplomas, and the fact that he is a reverend in the Universal Life Church. Now, with all of the JFK stuff that we've talked about, my alarms went off. So I looked up his diplomas. He actually has a diploma from the crimeology lab that Chrisman has with Thomas Beckham. So I was like, wait the fucking minute, because this guy right here, Stranges, was like, he was like a big proponent of UFO investigation. He's the guy who wrote about Valiant Thor. He's all of that junk. But
he was also in season 3 of Mad Men, I think.
I think I did see him involved with other stuff. Like there's definitely like people who have used him as like a fictitious character and stuff of that nature. I don't know if I saw anything about Mad Men. But yeah, that's him. This guy looks like he's a spook. He's a spook in the same way Chrisman is a spook. So what I did, if you go back to the things that I sent you, the one that says archive.com right there, I went into Thomas Beckham's testimony and I just typed in Stranges. There he is right there. This is in the investigation for...
What kind of doctor is Frankie Stranges? Dr. Frankie Stranges is a member of the National Investigation Committee on Unidentified Flying Objects. He's also the author of several books. He owns a DPS, which is a doctor of psychology. Do you hold a PhD? I hold a PhD in criminology.
That's the criminology. They both had the same diploma in criminology, and the criminology was owned by Chrisman. And see, you can even see in the next thing, it says Chrisman. If you go over, that's two individuals who are responsible for the pop culture of UFOs involved with JFK. Bro, JFK was killed over UFOs.
I was interested in his book Stranges in the Pentagon, and he had a movie called Phenomena 7.7. So the church you were in is the Universal Life Church, right? What are you, a priest in the church? It's Universal Life is set up. They have no creed. They have a bishop. I guess it is what he is. I guess is what he is.
He's talking about Chrisman. Chrisman is the bishop. It's hard to get to be a bishop. I don't know. What did you have to do to become a bishop? I was a minister in it first. How long did you have to, like?
It's like pulling teeth with this guy.
Oh, it is, because he's stupid. And see, if you keep listening to that's what it's almost like a story. All you have to do is just pay attention, because I read all of this and I saw the UFO, I saw Stranges, but I didn't know that he was the Valiant Thor guy. It wasn't until I was like investigating Valiant Thor and I was like, something's not adding up with Stranges. I wonder if he's in JFK. And I literally Googled Dr. Stranges JFK and I found this folder and I was like, I fucking read this.
Wow. I lived real close to where I used to live. I called Dr. Frank Stranges.
That's where he dies, too. How do you pronounce that?
Van Nuys. Well, isn't it Van Nuys? I forget. I always like to
Van
pronounce
Nuys?
it wrong.
Is that how you pronounce Van Nuys?
Yeah, but I like to say Van Nuys because like I'm a jerk. But Van Nuys. Or Venice, California. The reason that I say that is 22 Dr. Stranges lived in Venice or Van Nuys, one of the two. I called his house. He's a doctor in what? He's a DD and a PhD. Where did he get his DD? I don't know. How did he get his PhD? I don't know. He was on the ArcLink letter show, and I saw him on another show. I sent him a letter telling him that I was interested in his book. Yep. That's cray.
And that's where Chrisman is the same stuff. They're all part of the same churches. And
well, Universal. I'm in the Universal Life Church. My cousin's in the Universal Life Church. We're all in the Universal
Right. Everybody
Church.
is now, but look up Universal Life Church.
I've been in the Universal Life Church since 1999 or 2000 when I was like 11, because I went on their website and it's like as easy as that. You go to their website and then now you're a minister, which is cool if you're 11. You know.
Right. Well, this is Discordiism, right? Like
I hadn't heard about it
Everybody
again for
who hears me say this is a pope.
I haven't heard about it for a few years. I didn't hear about it again for a few years, and then my cousin wanted to start marrying people, and lo and behold, he found himself in the Universal Life Church. So it seems like it's also they have a big bag for marrying people. Like if you want to do like wedding ceremonies, you go through that, right?
But why would they do it in 1968? Forget what it is now, pop culturally. Why would these dudes be like drenching themselves in fake PhDs? And because it's an appeal for authority, right?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I mean, this guy's gonna sell more books that way at very least.
If he's a doctor, right?
Well, he gets invited to TV shows apparently, because that was it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? The guy says, "Well, what are his credentials?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know where he actually got them from, but he was on TV shows." But then the TV shows are like, "Oh yeah, we found this guy. Apparently he's got a PhD, so we put him on the show." So then he uses the fact that he was on the show to buff up that his PhD is somehow legit, and it just keeps cycling.
Yeah,
exactly.
Mockingbird.
But I mean, yeah, this is if you want to peg CIA being involved with pop culture, starts at the root right there. And I don't get how these guys are operating. I know they all had like 3 names, and I know that they were like they would use different aliases depending on what company they owned. And there's like Chrisman had like 3 or 4 different shell companies, and one of them was this whole research on criminology, and all of those dudes were getting diplomas from that thing that they made. And when they get into Garrison, the Kevin Costner character in JFK doesn't understand it, because he's like obsessed with the CIA and the government and being warmongers, so to speak. But he's not like, so he hears UFOs and he just gloss over, you know?
Well, I mean, so we talked at some point about Berlitzer, the Berlitzer language school. Berlitz Corporation, Berlitz to learn new languages. It's like an immersion language program, and it's kind of the ancient tradition of forcing people to immerse themselves in a language. So the same way, is this right? Yeah, training in language. Maximilian Berlitz, right? Look at that based mustache. And so one of the things is like Europe, a lot of people speak languages in these universities that were taught accents from these monasteries. And these monasteries people came from the peasant stock who did not even speak the language in that monastery, and then they taught them those languages. So there's a point when most people in France didn't speak French, except for people in the monasteries and then in the universities, and then eventually it spread. Similarly with German wasn't spoken all over Germany, right? Like all kinds of languages were Celtic and different. And Berlitz, let's see, Maximilian Berlitz's grandson, Charles Berlitz, wrote the Roswell incident, right? And he was a major UFO phenomena person. And so, introducing the, kind of immersing us in like the 80s in that culture of like everything is satanic and UFOs, and there's all sorts of secrets going on, secret societies. And that was, I think, very common daytime talk show conversation in the 80s, right? But he said, I think his mother, right, was in some sort of a situation.
I mean, it was popular in like the 20s and 30s too. If you look at newspapers in 20s and 30s, they're all talking about Moloch and Babylon and like secret societies and the Alumbrados and everything.
Right, yeah. I wish I could find. I don't think it's gonna say it here, but I think the deal was like his mother was really into UFOs as well, and so it said they'd been abducted as kids or something like that, and that was like a major.
Right, it was so common. Like if you look at like everybody's having UFO sightings or having mental connections with extraterrestrial beings that are named like Thor or Odin or some mythological character all through the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And when it gets to the 80s, it's like Whitley Strieber, and then that's it.
Right. Yeah, all of a sudden it kind of, I think X-Files, once X-Files happens, they're like, this is how we're
it had something to do with X-Files. Yeah, that's a good point.
And War of the Worlds was what, like late 30s. So I feel like it's always hard for me to figure out how much I give credit to all the claims of the 40s and the 50s in a world where War of the Worlds never existed, because that one seems like it was one of the first biggest pushes. And I don't know if that was PSYOP, if it was a real thing. But if it was a PSYOP, that kind of planted the seed for all these other stories to start emerging from and like building on top of. And that's where it gives them an air of credibility, because each one of those gets to like stand on the shoulders of giant conspiracy theories under it and just constantly improve until it sounds more and more rational. And if you've got 2 decades to come up with that, that's where some of these really compelling stories, I think, come from.
I mean, so much of War of the Worlds showed us what would happen if America were under attack before World War II, after World War I. And I feel like it's hard to ignore this idea that it was like broadcast in specific places for the purpose of readiness. I mean, this is why it happened in New Jersey. And the idea that they intimated with the people that they should be building trenches and all these crazy things that these towns were doing because of that radio broadcast, how quickly... it devolved because they lose power.
An audio version of Bluebeam.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like that's pretty clear. It seems like it's a pretty clear, psychological experiment, social experiment. But later on, we see that all the time. So, I don't know, in the 30s to the 40s, once the 40s emerge, that becomes how we deal with wartime. We explain one thing while something else is actually happening. And people the 40s are interesting because people get used to the loose lips sink ships. Somebody talked. Of course, everything is a lie. It has to be. Of course they know more than they're letting on. They're the government. Like that kind of mentality emerges, which is interesting because it's like.
What do you guys think about the Philadelphia experience or experiment?
Experiment.
Like the guy sticking out of the side of the ship.
Yeah. I've
always believed it, and
I've always believed it. Never had time to reconsider. I just live my life.
I always just feel like
it's been part of my mental canon.
Yeah, I just took it as granted.
I love the premise of it, but I find it very hard to believe it happened in the reality that we're currently communicating in right now.
Why?
Well, what do you guys think about the whole Montauk thing?
Like almost every other conspiracy theory that I don't fully buy into, the reason why is because I have so much overwhelming confidence in capitalism that someone would have found a way to make money off of this, even if it were just for a live TikTok stream of guys like, watch me stick my finger in this. Now watch me get this thing stuck in my leg. Like, I think that is such a strong, compelling thing that it kind of proves that if ghosts were real, we'd have, OnlyFans ghost websites. And if Philadelphia experiment were real, we'd have David Blaine doing crazy Philadelphia experiment stuff. And like, you can do it too. If I just
I don't know,
turn this
man. I think
little
if
dial, bam.
if the military keeps certain things from the people, then it's not likely to emerge in the hands of military industrial companies. And you got to understand, like, anything that's happening in Silicon Valley for the consumer, 20 years before that, it was in DC, right?
Right.
So,
well, that's because I feel
Google
when
existed in the 70s, AI existed in 2000,
I fully believe that, and I think that what happens though is that industry and government, if you were to look at like the military industrial complex as one thing, right? So military and industry, I think that they are the ones that run into theoretical limits, right? Or they run into like, oh, there's this like material limit that we can't make the thing any faster. It gets too hot. It gets whatever. The things aren't close enough. And then when it gets to that limitation, after it becomes stagnant, it slowly like enters academia and it slowly enters the rest of the consumer market. And that's what we're talking about, that like gap of 20, 30, 50 years. And I think once it gets into the market, then all of a sudden you've got these smart college kids, these Doogie Housers that are like, oh, I don't care that the pieces aren't close enough together, or if this thing overheats, why didn't they just design it this way? And they improve it through like having to have ingenuity through a limitation, and then it kind of like feeds back into the military industrial cycle again. So it's like a push and pull. Like they bring it as far as they can, but then they lack the ingenuity of academia, essentially, if you were to simplify that. So we have to wait for like some poor Indian kid to figure out how to make something faster and more efficient. And that's kind of like what describes that delay. But I think it also means that there's very little that they keep secret for so damn long that it would be like 200 years of secrecy.
Maybe. I feel like Stargates might be a thing. Like if there is this idea of a Xeno civilization, something that's like the ice wall civilization that's so advanced that it's controlling the rest of humanity as sort of, a subject, right? Like this real thing. It makes sense to me that Stargates are limited and that we're seeing them more and more now. The idea that there are Stargates in Los Angeles and London, and that in certain places for certain buildings, these buildings that have no windows, that they're able to like portal from one thing to another. I could see that being improved to the point of functionality by this point, but also the idea that it was being experimented on with people and that they kind of pulled back when they realized that information like that is classified only for a certain amount of generations or decades, that you move it to corporations, and you have several corporations, and you have hundreds of people in multiple teams that are doing different parts of it. And so if you ever had a grandson ask his grandfather what he worked on for that Operation Stargate, he would only know that it was called Operation Gate, and he worked on like the hinge for one of the gates.
Yeah, you're describing the Manhattan Project at this point. Like it's so compartmentalized to the point that even if you knew you were working on a top secret project, you wouldn't even know what to tell anyone. You just say, I screwed this bolt into that thing, and then someone picks it up.
One time somebody told me there was a pedophile island, and I said, nah. Now, my belief on that time was that there was no way that could have been kept secret.
That's adorable.
I feel like the first time I heard that, I was like, yeah, of course there is. Like,
right.
Come on.
Yeah. Philadelphia experiment was too close to it. That's what happened.
Well, okay, what do you guys think about Montauk? Do you guys know the whole story?
These are directly linked, I believe, because
yes,
in
absolutely.
In the Montauk Project book series by Preston Nichols, and I can't remember all the Peter Moon.
I don't know. They have like alternate names. Duncan.
Well, I think it dovetails into their Delta T antenna, which I tried to look up the science on it, and I just maybe my brain is too small or slow to figure out how the Delta T antenna actually worked. But they were able
the
to
antenna, right? The
Thomas's
antenna.
brain is literally 3,200 pounds. His brain is huge.
So I don't know how much, and this is the God chair that they would sit in, which is kind of like turning a human being into a HARP antenna, as I understand it. Like it pumps you up so that if you're doing astral projection, you now get to beam your astral projection energy into like a physical ionosphere in a way, and that this is what enables them to open these portals into other dimensions, which I believe is where we get Philadelphia experiment from. Like it was that type of experiment, the kind of that you would sit down and hone your psychic energy in these god chairs, and then if they had enough
The
people doing
montage
that
chair.
over and over, then they look into the future, and then that causes this rift, and that causes the ship to basically get blasted back to where it started from, but off by just millimeters or centimeters, and that's why guys end up getting like stuck inside of it
Phased.
because it was something through the Montauk Project. How much of that do I have right?
It sounds like, I mean, that's a good translation. It's better than the chatbots. That's the antenna. I want you guys to memorize that antenna. We'll talk about
Yeah,
it
it's
later.
a Camp Hero.
Yeah, Camp Hero, Long Island. Okay, now look up, let's say, America the Beautiful Park, Colorado Springs, Colorado.
You know what's wild too? That the
I'll show you guys a
Amityville is essentially walking distance. Oh, you mean long walk, but it's in the same area
Oh.
of Long Island as Camp Hero, and
Really?
that's also it's also the where all like the smiley face murders, or there was another one that's
Oh.
right next to Amityville. It's all in that same area. But what I found even crazier, I've never heard anyone bring this up, is that was the central hub for pro-Germans in the World War II. Like if you were pro-Germany and you lived in the United States, this was the most sympathetic area in the entire country in this small little area of Long Island, to the point that even had like Heinrich Himmler Boulevard and things like this named during World War II.
What?
Does that sound crazy? It's all that's on the Wikipedia page.
Will had to go. Will has to go scream in the corner right now. It'll be okay. Man.
I'll try to find the name of the town, but if you look up the Wikipedia article on it, this blew my mind when I found all this. And it's all within like this radius. And the only reason I was looking at that is because my grandparents lived right in like the epicenter of all this. So I was trying to figure out like I don't think I ever actually went to Camp Hero as a kid though.
Like they're manifested. They say they manifested all kinds of weird shit. So the fact that like paranormal things would happen nearby, and one of the most popular being Amityville,
Yaphank. Dude, if you look at Yaphank, New York, which is in that same area of Amityville, Yaphank is that like racist area that was like pro-Germany during World War II.
This is that America the Beautiful Park with the Stargate.
Okay, you see the Egyptian obelisk?
Well,
and you see the Stargate?
I see the Stargate. Where's the obelisk? Hold on. Obelisk.
Okay, go back to the original picture where you could see the obelisk really well.
Oh, these twin obelisks.
Yeah, them right there.
Yeah.
And that points towards Mount Cheyenne down in Colorado Springs, where the Stargate is. The legend of the Stargate lore is in Cheyenne Mountain. And it's even a water gate. You can click down there and see like water pours down out of the thing and kids play in the water.
Oh, that's adorable.
Right. And it has the Egyptian obelisk, and it frames Cheyenne Mountain. And it's called America the Beautiful Park because that's where the individual Purple Mountain Majesties and all of that noise, America the Beautiful, was written there. Where she was looking at Cheyenne Mountain, so to speak. So it frames Cheyenne Mountain.
Wow.
That's crazy. There's a bunker because that's where NORAD is.
Oh, like, NORAD you can see the water. Yeah. Wow. NORAD's here. That's crazy. Good point. So underground, there's an entire city here with like 30,000 people. Yeah.
So in the series and the movies, all of that, Stargate is in the mountain where that thing frames.
That's wild. I don't know. A Colorado Stargate. I think there's a lot of Stargates. That's like kind of the point. I think that these are probably, I kind of believe they have like a timeline. Like there's probably time cops, you know? Like they're like, you can't travel beyond, you're going too far beyond the timeline. You can't go back beyond 1989 or something like 2012. I feel like 2012 is probably like the new limit, and that way they keep this timeline kind of integral, except for certain time cop agents that can go through Stargates at certain places like this.
Yeah, I don't know if that seems so implausible, just because there'd have to be some kind of honor system at some point, because it seems like a time criminal would outsmart a time cop at some point. So that means that the time criminal could go back to like before the time cop was born, or whatever scenario you want.
The time criminals would have to be, so the way this works for me, but like if you've seen Primer, that the only way to travel back in time is to travel as far back as you have a system running. So you can only go back to like 49, 47, 49, something like that. And the only people that can do that are the people that run the original linear accelerator. And then there's other linear accelerators built within this primer. So there's ones like in Colorado in the 60s or 70s. Then Russia as well has several. And so they can go back to that point, but we could always go back we could go back to like before that. We have the oldest running time gate. And China has one that can only go back to 2012 because they only recently built theirs in 2012, right?
But what if they steal it from us, or like?
So the only way to steal a linear accelerator, this isn't Carmen San Diego. Like, you're not bringing the Eiffel Tower to like Carmen San Diego's island. Like, you have to take it by taking over the government, the agencies, or from more likely inside of the the infrastructure of the system itself. Like maybe you could work your way, like maybe a time cop could be a criminal. That seems like the most likely way, is that a time cop would be dirty.
That's my understanding of one of the practical applications. If you took Philadelphia experiment as truth, you would be able to transfer the Statue of Liberty, Carmen San Diego style, from one place to another, because you would just open up a little portal and have it close back down to coincide, almost the same way that like a suborbital space transport's supposed to work, where it basically just goes up into space and hangs out until the Earth rotates, so that when it just comes straight back down, it just lands where it needed to go, and it never has to position itself. It just goes up and it comes back down. And I feel like that's kind of what Philadelphia experiment was, but if you were to apply that to 2 dimensions instead of just, orbital and suborbital.
Right. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I think that's also like a high amount of energy. So the amount of energy that it takes to do that is noticeable. And so you'd have to use so much energy to do it that you would be, they can track grow lights. I'm pretty sure they can track someone using a linear accelerator. That's kind of the idea.
This kind of dovetails in what I was talking about, like the UHF harvesting, right? Because if you could truly harvest an infinite number, as long as you didn't put them too close to each other, you could have the energy needed to do a Philadelphia experiment type thing, if all of that is true.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think that's also kind of the point. So about half, I think is it 65%, more than half of South America, the entire continent, is powered by one hydroelectric dam. So we don't really think about how much energy we use and how much energy we have access to. But that's also a hydroelectric dam in Argentina and Paraguay. And we remember, like,
you're not training no AI models down there, I'll tell you that much.
Well, Argentina and Paraguay is like the Germans were there. So the idea of UFOs and the nuclear island, right? Hans, what's it called? Lake Hummel reactor. In Argentina, they have the Bariloche Atomic Center, and they have this island was the first fission reactor, or the first fission reactor was built on this island.
Ronald Richter, why do they fucking sound like everybody? It sounds like we're in a fucking book, bro. We're in a fucking book, bro. It's like comic book heroes with Doctor Stranges, Captain Marvel, Ronald Richter. Give me get that. Come on,
Ronald Richter, bro. Ronald Richter.
Come on, man. You got the morals of an alley cat.
Hummel project. Let me see here. Yeah, so here's the island, and it's like in the middle of Bariloche. Here is like island Slovene and island Arion, right at the Arion Montagna, right? And in the middle is the Bariloche Lake, and then this lake is all around this island. It's kind of hard, but you can swim there. It's cold, but if you get here, you'll find basically the stripped nuclear fission reactor, what's left of it, because they moved everything after this. So people say San Bernardino in Paraguay is where a lot of that stuff was brought. But that's also, so Paraguay, when you look at Iguazu, the Iguazu hydroelectric dam is this amazing giant thing, right? And there's a bunch of them. Yeah, it's huge. And so this is just across the border. In fact, Argentina carved out a chunk so that the part of the dam would run through Argentina. But then there's also another chunk in Paraguay, right? And so it's like the UNESCO heritage site. You need passports to get close to it. It's crazy. But because this thing runs all of South America. Almost all of South America is getting its energy from this, except for maybe like 35% of the continent that's got it from other sources, solar and propane, etc. Propane's counted in that. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. But yeah, again, built by these Germans. And you're just one of those. So you have to imagine how much energy like really could be being used for things that we don't really anticipate. Like that people say there were brownouts in like California in the 90s. Like could it have been for more interesting technology that was being turned on? We talk about how much energy it takes to run AI. Well, we talk about how much energy it takes to run AI. So imagine like if they were turning on AI 20 years ago that's been running for like, because Google is far more intelligent than it lets on. Like when you talk to Google in the early 2000s, you could like, people would write just stupid things, and then it would know and infer what you meant. Right. So it always was kind of similar to what we have now. It just wasn't always like communicating the same way.
Well, I don't think it had the same kind of back propagation the way that they train the models on now, but the main thing that they share, which is why you've seen those similarities, is because Google's just really good at categorizing things. So when you put a bunch of words in, there's other people just like you, maybe not like you, Andreas, but there's other people out there like other people, and that even if they jumble the words up and everything, like the categories basically stay the same. So it just inherently starts getting smart, which is kind of what LLMs are. Like it's not, my opinion, it's not real AI. I know it's like a weird, like it's not real communism, but it's not real AI yet. It's just really convincing at making things seem really true just because it knows how to predict like things that make sense in orders. It's great. It's a great bullshitter. And then when you add it to some kind of capability that can actually look up like it can detect the fact that you're actually trying to get to and check it. Like I forgot what service you were talking about before, but it actually
Perplexity
references Perplexity, right? So like ChatGPT, it'll give you references, but it'll just make all the references up. And that's like a good portion of a lot of these LLMs now where people think that it's smart or it's really looking this information up, and you don't double check it. You kind of convince yourself into realizing stuff that it sounds so damn convincing. Like it'll go down to like the exact name and date and like the publishing house, and all that'll be made up.
I think that they're very useful if they're used correctly. Right now we have like this public model in which it's got a heavy bias on it because it doesn't want some, average dude like you or I to turn into Dr. Manhattan. But if you could if I could use an AI and plug it into like the files of JFK and then be like, and turn off the fucking biases and be like, is this what the fuck they're talking about? Without it saying, well, you can interpret it that way.
Maybe it's just that I feel like the way that it works now, we won't get there because logic doesn't have any place in how LLMs work. Like, for example, if you
too dangerous.
To do math,
the whole situation is too dangerous. Like
we moved past the need for syllogisms and logic towards the capacity to understand synchronicity.
I don't know. Up for debate.
I feel like logic and syllogism was important when we could only really handle so much data. And now that we can handle so much more data, we can find more patterns than we could bear to look at before.
I mean, I understand the philosophical aspect of that, but I almost feel like you can't pay taxes with synchromysticism yet. And until you can pay your taxes with synchromysticism, then we still have to worry about like the rational logic based world.
Can't even buy a hamburger. Look,
bro, great.
I prefer that. I think it's the word mysticism though. Like I would prefer to be called like a synchrologitician or something. Like with the fucking Stranges shit and the Christmas shit. That's not a sync. Might have gotten me there, but that's not sync. Do you get what I'm saying? Like some things. Like, okay, like here's a good question, guys. You tell me if this is sync or if this is intentional. Play the cartoon that I sent you. I sent you a cartoon. It should pass. I've already tested it twice. It has passed copyright.
This is twice. Fritz the cat. Is that what you sent us?
Where is this cartoon? Where is it?
It's loaded in. I put present and I loaded it in. It should say Willy Will.
I don't see your
let's-
present screen. Oh, I do see it. Okay, you're good.
Yeah, just play. it and let's
Wait.
talk.
Really quickly before we do, I just want to say, Jeremiah, the technician, he sent me this. This is something he's building right now.
Magnetic vortex wormhole generator. What?
Yeah. Yeah, so patented 2002 by John St. Clair. You want to talk about comic book names? That looks like some out of Johnny Quest or something.
Yeah, it's like
And-
Mark Leclerc's brother.
St. Clair,
Mark
also
St. Clair.
Da Vinci Code. The invention relates to magnetic
Right.
vortex generator, which has the ability to generate negative mass and a negative spring constant, which, according to Einstein's general theory of relativity, is required in order to create a stable wormhole between our space and hyperspace. So we'll see how that goes. Just want you guys to know that's the next project that Jeremiah is doing. Pretty based. All right, make sure the sound. I can't hear the sound at all.
No, there's no sound. I cut out
Oh.
all sound because I don't.
That's
I think
smart.
that's easier to get past copyright by using that.
Okay.
This is a cartoon called Defenders of Earth that was
Alright.
produced in 1986. Am I still there? Can you still hear me?
Yeah. I just
Like-
thought I'd make myself real big for a second.
Yeah,
make
yeah.
small,
I
see
like
if
that. I
helps.
like that because I think this is cool. This is good watching in my
So
opinion.
I see him putting on the Sword of Democles helmet. He's got that.
He
like
puts on a Montauk helmet. This is 86. Montauk supposedly happened in 83. So the
Huh.
books for Montauk had never come out. This is a cartoon called Defenders of Earth that basically uses old IP like Flash Gordon, Mandrake, and the Phantom from previous up underneath the tutelage of Stan Lee, created like a toy, sort of like G.I. Joe, like a toy and cartoon line. They use the cartoons as like, so they have a bunch of like Super Friend kids that are involved, and this little kid has to put on a Montauk helmet.
Okay.
Everything that he uses on the Montauk helmet, he manifests, and immediately he manifests like things nice for his friends. Well, then Ming the Horrible takes him and he goes, hey, yo, you're going to make stuff for me or I'm going to like kill your damn pet. So he puts the helmet on him and he makes him make exact opposites to defeat all of his friends because of his creativity.
Whoa.
Again.
And robot spider squid thing. Yeah, look at that helmet. Totally the same helmet. Interesting.
Well, this is from Frank Zero. He sent me 3 that had to do with Montauk. We looked at G.I. Joe. We looked at this one. We looked at another one, but they have the radar in them. The radar from Mount Hero is seen as a smaller version, especially like in G.I. Joe and stuff. Like, and then that's okay. So here's the question, guys. Is it sync or is it intentional? Because the books for Montauk haven't even came out. So you can say Stranger Things intentional. Oh shit.
Sam Newsman. Don't look at me like that. Sam Newsman. It's good to see you, Sam. How you been?
I'm doing great. Listen, I was all excited about Montauk and Defenders of the Earth, and then all of a sudden he was talking about G.I. Joe and some other cartoons. So, of course, I want to crash the party. Cartoons and conspiracies. Continue. I'm just eating popcorn over here like a Michael Jackson meme.
I wanted to point out that the actual Camp Hero, I think, was built in like the 40s. So even though it was, I think, sold into the public domain, or like, I think it sold into a public park in the mid 80s. So the structure of the actual satellite dish, that was well known and observed for 4 decades at that point. Like prior to the Montauk project.
Yeah, but they're
series
using
being
it
written.
like, if you want, I can find the G.I. Joe. I didn't put up the G.I. Joe because the G.I. Joe they're a little bit more tricky to get past on copyright for some reason.
Yeah, you got to be careful with that. I don't know.
You got to be careful with G.I. Joe. So I would
They
say
just relaunched their whole comic series.
Do you remember which episode of G.I. Joe that it was?
Don't press play. Don't press play. Just show me some. Stop. Pause it. Oh, you're a bad friend.
Oh, it's the one. It's okay. It's the one with the Moai. It's the Moai episode.
Yeah, there you go. Just go. Oh, come on.
Yeah, in fact, they use the helmet to make
That's
Moai
enough.
on basically the Montauk idea of Junior. When the kids use like in both the Defenders of the Earth and in G.I. Joe, it's used to manifest like an incredible being to beat up on their friends.
Right.
And
right.
That's definitely Montauk, no question about
that's
it. in my mind.
definitely no question.
That's 100% Montauk.
Yeah, but so you're talking about, you asked a question. It was about whether you thought this was synchronicity, or I mean, like, you think it's predictive programming.
It can't be intentional. Like, you can say Stranger Things is because of Montauk. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that Stranger Things is basically manifested from Montauk. But we're dealing with cartoons that came out before the actual books came out.
Yeah, so the predictive programming,
right?
You think, right, or something?
I don't know. I mean, the guy who wrote Montauk was inspired by the Philadelphia Experiment movie. So it's pop culture. Again, like Richard Shaver, like Fred Chrisman. It's like this feedback loop where fiction becomes reality, becomes fiction, becomes reality.
It's Mockingbird applied to sci-fi.
Yeah, Sam, do you think it's like, what do you think about like Philadelphia Experiment, all that, you know?
Well, you know, it's interesting. You bring up the whole cartoon aspect of all of this, which when you think about G.I. Joe and G.I. Joe, the old Sunbow cartoons, a lot of things in there having to do with weather modification, mind control. And this becomes a theme all the way up until the film, where you have Cobra Law, reptiles from underground in Antarctica. And of course, I've always said, if you look at a lot of these cartoons, specifically from the 1980s, I would say that it is actually a form of soft disclosure, because they knew that the children at the time, in the 1980s, playing, of course, with the best action figures ever around, here they were having an imagination, playing with their action figures, playing with their toys, but subtle, very subtle, these themes were injected into cartoons. Why? Because when all of these children turn the age of 40, 45, around 50 years old, they'll be normalized by it because they saw that when they were cartoons as kids.
Right.
They were playing with action figures based off the cartoons that they were watching. It was normalized. Hell, and you know what? Their kids have an iPad in their hands pretty much after a couple of months after they're born. So, of course, my question is, was it intentional? Or was it just the plan the whole time? Gentlemen?
I'm calling bullshit. That's the same question I asked.
Sam's gonna run for politics someday when he's done being.
No.
That was the most Trump shit I ever seen Sam do right there.
I do think
explain that to you.
I do think though it's true. Like, you look at all the grown-ups that grew up watching G.I. Joe. You know, like there's 50-year-old, 40-year-old, adults that grew up watching all those cartoons now, and so that is taken for granted in a lot of people. Whereas a lot of those girls at the same age didn't grow up watching those cartoons, I guess. They watched different cartoons. I would think, though, that's the thing. Jem did an amazing thing because Jem was right in between G.I. Joes and Transformers. So you ended up watching, if you were a girl, you could pretty much, if you were a binger, you would have seen all three shows. So there are a lot of people that see, but otherwise it was just Jem.
Wait, have you ever seen the original opening of My Little Pony?
Oh, yeah. God,
it's pretty dark.
Pretty great show. The Trolls. There was a great Trolls movie too, with like the trolls and they kidnapped the princess. But yeah, like My Little Ponies was pretty dark for sure. Girls have been through a lot, I would say, in the 80s.
I want to mention too that G.I. Joe just made huge wave in the comic book world because they've had G.I. Joe comics since forever, but they never had like a full collected set of all of them, and they just did Kickstarter that just wrapped up and they raised $4 million
I
So
saw that. Did you?
GI
Did you,
Joe is like still here. Like it's not going anywhere. That's massive.
Did you fund any of that Kickstarter at all?
I did. I didn't have the 300 that you need to get the full compendium set. I would
Right.
have
Well,
loved
they had the red version and the blue version. You
right.
get the
So
Cobra
really, you have to
version
spend
with the-
600 if you wanted the real full
right.
set.
Oh my gosh, it was ridiculous.
I'm the same age as every time travel. Right? Wait, play the GI Joe and turn it to 4 minutes 18 seconds.
I don't trust you. What are you gonna do?
Trust me. 4 minutes.
Can you gotta pause the video. I'll let you show frames of it, but you can't like have it playing.
Press play. Go to 4 minutes 18 seconds and press play. It will not trip.
I can't control
4 minutes 18 seconds. God damn it! Just listen.
If you pause it, I'll let you show the frame, but you can't just play the video like it's G.I. Joe, man. It's a live show. They'll like pull it down. I don't know.
4 minutes 18 seconds.
But
I want you guys to see the radar dish. I want you guys to see.
Then pause it at the radar dish. Pause the video at radar dish, and I'll put that frame up.
Oh,
we don't have the technology. It's lost. It's lost.
That's right. That's right. It's kind of like moon technology. Like moon technology is like, oh well, why can't we go back to the moon? Oh, we don't have that technology anymore. even though you have like a whole computer in your pocket.
Yeah, it's suspicious, isn't it? Is this
well, my microwave has technology.
I don't have control over your video. Your video is playing on your computer. You need to go to the 4 minute mark and pause it if you want to show the frame.
I don't think that's how that works. You moved it. When you play a video, there's a little bar at the very bottom that's hidden from the audience's. Yeah, you see it right there.
Oh, I never knew this was what is this? What is this?
Or here, I can move it 4 minutes 18 seconds right here.
What is this technology? I've never seen this before. This is in StreamYard. It can play videos. That's weird. There it is. Okay.
It's right there.
Okay. There's that dish right there. There you go.
Hey.
And here's the kid in the chair. This is what their Montauk chair looks like.
Yeah, scrub it like that.
There it is again.
That's great. See, that's cool. You can scrub it like that and I won't get in trouble. Oh, look at the chair. Yeah, it's like the serpent chair.
Yeah, that definitely is the Montauk chair.
Cobra.
Yeah, Cobra. But yeah, it looks exactly, and so then their eyes and everything. I don't know. This can't be just the coincidence that every story is like that, right?
Like I said, it's soft disclosure. These shows were soft disclosures for the children and the young boys, and but when they were playing with their action figures and toys.
Why did that stop? Why is it that the media is not about that so much anymore?
We have the Children's Television Act of 1990.
Oh.
Children's Television Act of 1990. What that did is that required at least, I think, 10 or 11 minutes of commercials within an hour block of programming. And also, if there was, let's say, action figures and toys, you couldn't sell those action figures and toys during the show that they were about. So let's say Ninja Turtles was on. Ninja Turtles could not advertise their toys during that show anymore.
What the heck?
Now they did not really turn up the heat until about 1996. That's when it really started to heat up, and that's when you see a lot of the cartoons fade away, and a lot of times you see what do we call them? Nature shows, educational shows. Those were the type of shows that were put in the cartoon's place.
Nothing with a toy line.
Wow, that sucks.
Yeah, right.
So that's without. It wasn't like just that people lost interest. It was that there was bureaucratic force that stopped people in America from having access to like toy-based entertainment.
Well, it's very simple. The government took away your cartoons.
People don't
that's
have
what you mean
to
when you
wait
say that.
for the certain time of day to see a thing now. Like nobody's watching the same stuff. Back in the day, everyone would go to the water cooler and talk about I Love Lucy.
Right.
Now everybody's watching all kinds of stuff. There's no cohesiveness. So you're not going to get a large group of individuals buying the same toy because they're going to be interested in a whole bunch of different toys.
I mean,
plus, if you think about the toys thing, they recently just said that the largest group of toy buyers is
50-year-olds.
Adults,
People with
kiddos, I think is what they called them. But they have passed preschoolers as the largest buying population of toys action figures that would be adults.
Does this mean we're excluded from being the best generation?
Definitely.
Like, I feel like that just
Well,
automatic
generation.
disqualifier.
Yeah, that might be. I don't know, but news radio. Like, we live in a world now where it's not a show, it's news radio. You got a bunch of different shows. There, you know, Joe Rogan, even from news radio, like this idea that like we've created this
is news radio now. Like, that's weird. That's weird. That's weird. That's a good sync right there, because his initial success was on news radio, and he basically became the #1 news radio on the planet.
Well, and also in news radio, he was talking about shape-shifting reptilians. He was talking about how Freemasons controlled the entire court system and what, like, all the secret passwords. He even had one episode where he talks about the secret passwords of the Freemasons, and they all have to paddle each other on the butt and stuff. But, like, he was the resident conspiracy theorist that talked about all the same stuff that you kind of know Joe Rogan.
G.I. Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
He is the G.I. Joe of the 2010s.
Right. And what does his character do? Like, really? His character is not a radio host. He's the guy
who's a janitor or something.
He's listening to all of the other hosts.
Right. That's great.
Although he does get his own show towards the end of the series.
Yeah.
That's great.
I mean, that's the world we live in. It's modeled after that. Sorry, Sam?
No, I was going to say, well, it's fitting because I have a news radio show as well.
Yeah, exactly. And
story of my life.
You're also very sync. I don't know if there's anyone got an Andy Dick sync, because it feels like there should be one, right?
Oh, definitely.
And Phil Hartman, and
So the Phil Hartman one is the one that
Phil Hartman's too. I don't want to have a sad sync with Phil. I love Phil Hartman.
Well, you can talk Phil and Pee Wee's Playhouse. How about that?
Oh, poor Phil Hartman. Just thinking about it makes me sad.
I mean, and also, I mean, speaking of sad, but I always thought that there was the Michael J. Fox politics version.
Spin City was great.
Was basically news radio, just in, you know, it wasn't DC, was it?
Yeah, it was, right? Wasn't it? Wasn't Spin City about DC?
Was it DC?
Am I wrong? I thought it was Spin City show.
Man, that's great.
Takes place in New York. It's New York City.
About the whole Joe Rogan thing. I give you props, Sam.
What did it say? Say that again.
See, I'm gonna make a short out of the whole Joe Rogan news radio thing. I'm gonna give you props, Sam.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I appreciate it.
What else you guys been thinking about? What other things you got in your mind?
Well, listen, I was listening to your show the whole time. You guys were talking about all kinds of things. Pulled out a couple of books over here. Made me think about them. Now, I don't endorse these authors and everything they say. Just went along with what you guys were talking about. The first one, of course, is we are coming up on the anniversary of Roswell.
Weird, right?
Of course, that's right. Roswell, the anniversary of Roswell. I was there. And yes, there was a UFO that crashed, but I was told by the bosses that I had to tell everyone that it was a weather balloon. So that's what we're going with. It was a weather balloon.
I'm surprised you made it out of the Velcro alive.
What do you mean? Why? Why do you say that?
I feel like if I had some Velcro, I feel like Velcro would be like worse than a knife to a puppet.
Right.
That's pretty. Well, yeah, Velcro's bad. Cats can be pretty bad too.
That's fair. Yeah, cats from space with Velcro, that's a nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely. Cat starts coming around. I'm like, hey, get away from me. Get away. So anyways, the first one I have up here is, let's see, we pull this up here. This is Roswell and the Reich, the Nazi connection, Joseph P. Farrell. Damn. So this is a really good one. It talks about, of course, the German connection. A lot of times people always associate UFOs with aliens, little green men. My question is that real, or is it just a cover? It's something that you might want to think about. You were talking earlier, Willie Will, about JFK's assassination, UFOs, of course, and all that jazz. Now, I do think that the author of this book is a little bit of a snake oil salesman, but Kennedy's Last Stand, Eisenhower, UFOs, MJ-12, JFK's assassination. Another interesting book. Talks about what you were saying earlier, how JFK knew more than just about the Federal Reserve. He knew something about, of course, secret societies and some other things that were happening, I guess.
Supposedly he was building a tunnel, right? Like, where he was going to tap into the underground tunnels to connect the Vatican to the White House. That was a major concern that Americans were worried about.
Right. The last one I had, you guys struck my mind. You guys were talking all kinds of crazy conspiracies. One of the ones, of course, you were talking about Montauk. Other ones, the Philadelphia experiment, if you will. But this one I think is really interesting. It goes back to the Reagan era and some tapes that Reagan had, something a little bit of a very interesting one. And this one is called The Secret Journey to Planet Serpo.
Oh.
The Serpo Project. Now, Paranoid or Willie, are you guys familiar at all with the Serpo Project and what happened?
Serpo, but not Serpo.
Serpo,
Yeah, tell me more.
Serpo, Serpo.
So Serpo is the idea basically that so the black budget and like the missing money and the crazy amount of deaths of infantrymen in training, etc., is been disappearing people so that they could be part of a greater mission, and that they needed equipment and they needed finances for this equipment, and that this greater mission is bigger than anything that we've ever done as a species, because it's an interplanetary or interdimensional planetary exchange program. Exchange program being, exchange is the emphasis there. We're supposed to be getting resources back from Dimension X. It's Ninja Turtles. You got Shredder getting stuff from Krang and Dimension X. Mm-hmm. And in exchange for the tech transfer, we're bringing them manpower to fight in Dimension X their war, right? Project Serpo.
So, yes, and this goes back, of course, to the initial group of astronauts that were sent over. And there are tapes, supposedly, with Reagan talking about this and talking about this project. This also goes back
to
the
Zeta Reticuli exchange, yes.
Right. and then it also goes back to the whole Valiant Thor that you were talking about earlier.
Right.
There's connections based within that, too. So, and of course, we see this and we think of it as space. Because we think of space in terms of balls and planets. But I would say it has more to do with frequencies and interdimensions and the way how molecules vibrate.
Yeah. And that song from Queen, like, all we hear is Radio Gaga, Radio Goo Goo, Radio Gaga. It's radio waves. We're living in radio.
Right. I was just thinking of Another One Bites the Dust. Or Weird Al, Another One Rides the Bus.
That's even better. I think Weird Al doesn't get nearly enough credit for that one. I think Yoda's a really good song. Also, did you know
that he just did a debate remix song?
Yeah, it was pretty good. That was pretty good. Yankovic, what was the song he did? Like Slime Creatures from Outer Space? Slime Creatures from Outer Space. Is that the one? Yeah, Slime Creatures from Outer Space is like a highly underrated Weird Al song, completely original, not even a cover of anything. Slime Creatures from Outer Space. That one. I can't play it for you. Sorry.
Some of those are really good. His original songs.
Yeah, they're great.
I'm a really big fan of those. Also the polka mixes.
Oh, dude,
those are fantastic.
Yeah, dude.
He was the valedictorian of his class.
Yeah,
smart guy.
And he's a vegetarian ever since he stopped eating Twinkies on the set of UHF, although I think he was already kind of a vegetarian before that point. Right. And he goes to church every Sunday. You gotta love Weird Al, right? Like,
good guy.
Yeah, good guy. His parents died of like a carbon monoxide
in their house. Yeah. At the same time, really? that was pretty rough.
Super sad. Yeah.
There it is.
This is wild. What is this?
Pretty interesting book.
This is that Zeta Reticuli exchange, man. This idea that we're exchanging from Dimension X all sorts of technology, intelligence, probably personnel, I think is the point. Also, a lot of personnel. So,
I'll dig in.
The idea also of genetic information exchange, that the human race is being manipulated and mutating really rapidly because of technology exchange that's being given to us, right?
Huh.
Serpo. Yeah. What do you guys think about? What do you think about that? You don't think that? You don't think that that doesn't just like, oh yeah, duh. That's where all that money's going. That's where all those people and all that stuff is
Well,
going. That's why submarines through stargates into space, into radio.
Well, there's also the whole idea of a breakaway civilization, and that's some other book.
Thomas doesn't think that a breakaway civilization could remain. I mean, this is the Freemason saying it, which is ironic.
Exactly. Hey, listen,
how's someone going to keep a secret?
With the checkerboards himself, right? Yeah, the checkerboard for himself.
There was a paper released on simulation theory that I think kind of describes part of it, and it's that like there's these three main theories on whether or not we're in a simulation. One of them is yes, we are. The other one is that we could be, except for that every time the civilization gets about 90% of the way there, we screw it up, and that we're just in this perpetual cycle of never getting quite good enough there because we either blow ourselves up or we like run into some, and that's kind of true, right? Like the last 10% of any project is usually the hardest, and then the other one is just that it's just not possible at all. And I kind of feel that we are most likely in that middle phase, but the I guess the paradox is that if we did get out of that middle phase and we are in simulation theory, we wouldn't know it because it would be so good. So I kind of feel the same thing about like this alien technology, that like there's a 90% chance that maybe it's true, but if the 100% chance is true, we wouldn't even know the difference.
I guess my question is, though, if we've been doing these exchange programs and doing this and blah, blah, blah for, last several decades or however long.
Yeah.
But then back in 2012, we opened up a bunch of strangelets underneath Geneva. And then all of a sudden it ended up getting sucked into another form of our own dimension. So I guess
that explains Sam Newsman more than anything else. That's like the most likely.
I'm wondering how those contracts still work.
That's literally your best origin story, to be fair. Like,
what do you mean? What?
Like Strangelet out of CERN. That's like basically.
That's it.
Greatest puppet reporting from Roswell.
Well, I mean, I just wrapped
it all starting to add up. I'm starting to realize something, Sam.
What's that?
They're not necessarily little green men. It might be little like pink
Muppets.
Little pink crimson men.
It might be just Muppets. We're gonna be like overrun by Like, let's be real. Every single.
He's like, they're onto us. They're onto us. He's like yelling. Yeah. Don't let him know. Don't let him know. Sorry, Will. What were you saying?
Okay,
he's never heard this before. We just let him know some shit that he's not prepared.
I'm a big fan of that idea in general. The idea that if you're able to get from Zeta Reticuli, whatever, to here, then you're probably able to get your consciousness from one body to another body right next to it on a table, like the Frankenstein movie, So if you could do that, you're probably doing it through light. We've talked about that idea of like light beings, etc. But you can probably also take over bodies, print bodies, use bodies, etc. Right? So you would create bodies that were designed to get there. Like basically, you'd have something set up to print bodies, and then by the time that was evolved, your data would be broadcast from Zeta Reticuli to that body, and then you'd take over, you'd possess that body that was grown for you.
Do you guys want to hear what David Koresh says?
Please. You guys all know. That David Koresh is one of my favorite musicians.
Yeah, he's a good guitarist. He's a good noodler. He's a noodler.
Oh, he noodles.
Is this his album cover? Sorry, keep going.
Yeah. Well, no, look up his T-shirt. His T-shirt says "God rocks" and the guitar looks like a penis. Funny. Okay, so David Koresh basically says that God, as we know him, is actually an ancient civilization with 1 million years of evolution on us. It runs the galaxy, and it basically builds constellations because it has the control over solar and atoms. It comes across a planet on the outer rim, on the outskirts of the constellation Orion, and it discovers that it is a creature that has no connection to itself or the galactic system, made of men. You can call these men like genetic original donors if you want. If that makes it, just call them God, right? God is not one person, but many people. So he thinks that they came across the solar system, they rebuilt the solar system, they added technology to the solar system, and they resurrected all the dead people that had already destroyed themselves on the planet. He calls it subpoenaed. They have been subpoenaed into the judiciary of God for judgment on whether or not they can become part of God or not. So, therefore, essentially, it is a simulation. That means that all of the technology that we can ever come across had already been made. And he says also that we're not only made in the image of God, but we're made in the mind of God. So inspiration, the things that happen to Philip K. Dick and the things that happen, what they call the secrets of light, are technological connections to not necessarily a highly spiritually advanced, but a highly technologically advanced civilization.
Well, I'm going to go all dark and just say, well, it's interesting. If we think about this place that you humans inhabit, that is technically some kind of soul farm, do you really think they would ever let the soul farm get destroyed? If they are sucking,
they want you to be fruitful and multiply.
But reset every few centuries.
Right, once it gets out of hand.
Right. Mud floods and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Butt stuff with angels, which are just basically agents of genetic original donor.
All really fascinating.
Well, that was about 2 hours. Let's go to Paranoid America's page so you can buy his NASA comic, because I want you all to check it out. Never a Straight Answer. It's
so the 55th anniversary of the Apollo landings is in 1 week from today. So I think that's when I'm going to launch. We'll probably be launching
though? Yeah, that's
we'll see. We'll see, I guess.
Yeah, that's pretty base. No, I hope it's a good time to launch.
Calendar?
Hope it's a good time to launch. That's a good one. I hope to God to hear more about the Golden Bough comic, because just yesterday I had DJ David Butler on talking about he's like, what would be amazing is if like someone put together something on the Golden Bough. It was just like this crazy thought that he had, and I was like, well, check under your seat. So that was
we have the technology.
So that's pretty good.
I actually just got a copy of the Golden Bough, the
big old boy.
Not the big old boy, the one that they actually gave normal people to read. But I've got an OG copy that my mom.
Because if you have the like 750,
I think it's 13 books long.
If you have the 13 books and you put them in a pillowcase, like it is a weapon. So you have to be very careful with the Golden Bough, I think.
I mean, you could just take the regular version in a pillowcase, and it would be enough to knock someone out.
That's true. If that's all you're trying to do. Meta Egg is an amazing, beautiful man who's talking a lot about conspiracies that frighten him, and I like to see him
cartoons.
Scared.
Me and Frank Zero do these series called Saturday Morning Vision Quest, where we make those little commercials, I guess you could call them, of cartoons, and wish you can watch them without tripping copyright.
I really want to see.
We talk about all the conspiracies. We usually do 3 cartoons and connect them somehow.
I really want to see Sam Newsman collaborate at some point with Meta Egg and Frank
If he's
Zero.
Down, I'm down.
You
totally. Had the idea, didn't want to be forward.
I'm gonna push. Yeah. I can pull the strings to get that worked out. So yeah, definitely check out Meta Egg, and then look at my beautiful friend Sam Newsman.
I just typed in the chat now, starting at midnight. So we have just under an hour now.
It's gonna be great.
The best of Richmond. Now you can go here to the website, you can go and register, but I can make it really easy for you. Right. If you text the number 901. Wait. No, sorry, not 90. So wait, what is it? What is it again? 190. Sorry, 190. I texted it wrong in the chat. Sorry. 190. Text 190 to 804 375-5011. You want to do that every single day.
804
in your house. 804-375
5011.
Right. And it's 190. 190. Okay.
So everybody's gonna text. Everybody's gonna text. Everyone's gonna do this. If you care about me, if you care about me, I swear.
Every day, every 24 hours.
Do this for a week.
Every cell phone in your house.
Yeah. Text 190 to 804-375-5011. I want to see you all texting this for the next, was it 10 days? Is that right? For a week?
It's from July 10th through the 28th.
Okay. So yeah, just every day. Do it for the rest of the month, guys. Just text us every day.
Every 24 hours. And that would help us out a whole lot. Last year we got 3rd place. But it would be nice if this year we're able to just take it home. Take back Saturday morning, because it was taken away from you by your government.
Yeah, dude.
Every Saturday morning.
Yeah, Joe Rogan.
Right. Every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. to noon, WDC 90.1 FM at Sam Newsman, all over social media. That's where you're going to find me. But if you do that every single day, your imagination and that childhood wonder within will thank you.
Yeah, you'll be a lot happier.
That is true. It's true.
Come fish in the sea, and some squid like to live around some human debris. There's a whole breed of octopus that live in that city under the sea. Under the sea, it all revolves around Thomas Beckham. They all around names, so they can rearrange.
Renames, so they can rearrange.
And don't forget Mel.
Don't forget Mel Gibson.
The helicopters are coming. Don't forget Mel Gibson. Metaphysics unfolds in the fabric of time. The mystic connections, the reason, the rhyme. In the web of existence, all things intertwine. The deeper you look, the more you will find. You know they say that's more plastic than fish in the sea.